Aliens always insisted that human bones were delicate. Then Jason rose, chuckling. He had been hurled across the training hall like discarded cloth, slammed into a pillar with such force that even the amphibian medic winced. The floor rumbled. The column rang, and every cadet leaned forward, waiting for shattered limbs or an evacuation order. Instead, Jason rolled onto his side, groaned in that uniquely human fashion, rubbed his shoulder and muttered, "That tickled." Shock and laughter rippled through the room. Voren, the instructor, horns curved like black glass, thundered that practice was not a comedy stage. Yet his second set of eyes remained on Jason, scanning for fractures that were nowhere to be found. Jason stretched, wiggled his fingers and casually dusted off his uniform. He wasn't showing off. He truly believed anyone else could endure the same. Only when his reptilian peer Irex slithered near, tongue flicking in unease, and whispered that any sane being would have liquefied on impact, did Jason understand this wasn't normal? His only reply was a shrug. The gesture for "guess that's just me" word raced faster than a plasma conduit. Cadets whispered during meals, in bunks, even at rest stations. Humans walk away from collisions, they said, bones of flowing steel. Some insisted it was a biological quirk. Others claimed humans were secretly reinforced with alloys. Few joked they lacked the sense to know when they were broken. Jason was soon asked, no, gambled upon to repeat the feat. Bets stacked higher than canteen trays. He tried to dodge it, but eventually fate chose him again. This time in zero-gravity scrimmage, he ricocheted headfirst off a bulkhead, spun twice, and landed in a startled cluster of cadets. They screeched and scattered, but Jason calmly drifted upright, grinning. Bit dizzy, he admitted, but I'll live. The academy doctor demanded scans. Machines thrummed, charts glowed, alien specialists frowned over readings. Well, fractures, no tears, only mild bruising, they concluded. But that's impossible. Physics disagrees. Jason tilted his head. Maybe physics just likes me. By then even stern Voren regarded him less as a hazard and more as a puzzle wrapped in comedy. Drills shifted tone. Jason became the academy's crash dummy, sometimes eager, often unwilling, absorbing impacts so others could practice. Soon he carried a notebook tallying each collision endured. His peers wavered between awe and doubt. An insectoid cadet once begged him to sign a broken helmet, saying, "You dented it harder than it dented you." Jason laughed, so hard he nearly toppled off the bench. He found it hilarious, the faculty did. The dean summoned him to the high chamber, a vaulted hall where banners fluttered in false winds. "Human," the dean intoned, voice echoing. "You disrupt not only lessons but understanding itself. Why are your bones intact?" Jason thought of childhood, playground tumbles on concrete, bike crashes shrugged off, wrestling friends into the mud. He tried to explain humans were designed to fall, to endure, or their ancestors would never have survived running, climbing, fighting larger foes. The dean listened, crest twitching. "Evolution as armor," he murmured. Soon training changed again. Jason was paired with smaller cadets to teach recovery. He showed them how to roll, to laugh, to spring up rather than await sympathy. Many failed, some caught on, but progress showed. Lizard-like, cadets stumbled, rolled, and rose to ears. Jason clapped loudest. Whispers lingered. Was it bravery, folly, or some strange mix? To the others it felt unfair. Like gravity had signed Jason secret treaty. Friends teased him with mock accidents. Books dropped, trays tilted, doors swung wide. Jason joined the act collapsing dramatically, then springing back as if blessed by cosmic gestures, until the day no one laughed. A transport malfunctioned in the hangar. A crate the size of a shuttle broke free, sliding toward 3 trapped cadets. Screams tore the air. Jason didn't pause. He sprinted, slammed his shoulder into the crate, and absorbed the full force. Metal shrieked, sparks flew. The crate shuddered and toppled aside, missing them by inches. Jason staggered, arms quaking. His wide silence followed, every gaze fixed on him. He swayed once, then said, "Ow. Okay, maybe that one hurt." Cadets rushed him, clutching him like both shield and miracle. For the first time, the Academy saw his strange gift as more than spectacle, it was salvation. Jason limped to the medic, bruised but walking. Always walking. The hangar incident changed everything. Jason was no longer the amusing oddball who bounced off walls and made instructors sigh. He had become something weightier in their minds, though his stride stayed light. Cadets spoke of him as though his skin was woven with endurance, and his laughter braced with steel. Some began copying him in drills, studying how he landed, how he pushed forward. After shocks that should leave anyone folded on the floor. He never meant to lead, but somehow every collision pushed him into that role. Even the faculty revised routines, inserting human-style recovery methods as if Jason's clumsy advice were fragments of ancient martial scripture. He had no hidden wisdom, no grand system. He told them of falling from tree limbs as a child, of tumbling down staircases and ending only embarrassed, of games where bruises were part of the score. His classmates gawked at the casualness. For them, pain was a red light. For Jason, it was only a flashing warning. He didn't dismiss it. He simply believed you kept moving until you reached the goal. One day, in a combat sim, an armored alien cadet swung too wide, and his gauntlet slammed Jason's. Gasps echoed. That strike should have crushed ribs or sent him tumbling. Instead, Jason blinked, wheezed, and quipped, "Wow, you've been working out." The cadet froze in horror, while Jason clapped his arm and kept fighting. When the bout ended, the instructor pulled Jason aside, part annoyed, part curious, and asked if his body used hidden energy shielding. Jason only chuckled and tapped his chest. "Nope, just bone, blood, and dumb luck." The legend became inescapable. Rumors thrived in the mess hall. Some swore humans stockpiled calcium. Others believed their cells knit faster in sleep. Some whispered that laughter itself was his defense. Jason played along, chugging milk cartons or stretching dramatically before minor hits. Yet in quiet moments, he admitted, he had no idea why he always walked away. He just did. And in a place where everything else marked him as ordinary, it felt good to be extraordinary by accident. The faculty designed special exercises, naming him head of resilience workshops, an official title that mostly meant let the human crash and then explain why he's still alive. Jason taught rolling, controlled falls, and even the trick of turning pain into humor. Cadets tried. They failed. They rose again. Slowly, they laughed off small mishaps. Slowly, their fear of impact faded. It wasn't about copying his biology. It was about copying his spirit. And Jason, who had never seen himself as a mentor, realized he liked. But the academy wasn't built only for practice drills. It prepared them for war. That reality struck when alarms blared across campus one night. Not a drill, not an exercise. Something had struck the station's outer rings. Pirate skiff raiding the academy's supply caches. Panic raced through the dorms as cadets scrambled into armor and armed themselves. Jason was swept along in a torrent of tails, clicking mandibles and glowing eyes. Fear was thick, but so was resolve. Instructors shouted orders, splitting squads for defense. Jason was placed with the team guarding the west hangar doors. He saw familiar faces beside him. 9 with his restless tail, a winged insectoid trembling, a crystalline cadet whose voice chimed like bells. They looked to him, not officially but instinctively, as though the boy who survived every crash surely knew how to survive anything. Jason wanted to admit he was just scared. But then the hangar bulkhead shook, with a clang of boarding clamps and words stuck in his throat. Instead he steadied his helmet, checked his training rifle and stood little taller. The doors split open with cutting torches, sparks raining. Raiders stormed through, armored and armed. A squad wavered wide-eyed, but Jason yelled, "They're just bones and bruises waiting to happen." The absurd line made half of them snort, but laughter cut fear like sunlight through fog. They fired, they ducked, they moved. Jason charged in, awkward yet unyielding, and the first raider to strike him learned what the academy already knew. Hitting Jason was like striking a rubber pillar. He staggered, yelped, then retaliated with such reckless energy that even the raider hesitated. The battle tore across the hangar. Jason became less soldier, more living shield, blocking blows, absorbing shoves, rebounding off walls, always hauling others back up. At one point a raider flung crate across the deck. The crate slammed Jason square in the back. He staggered, straightened and shouted, "I've carried heavier backpacks in school." His squad laughed even as they fired, their hearts steadied by the absurdity. He could feel the bruises blooming beneath his armor, muscles throbbing, but nothing broke. Each time he rose again, his friends grew braver. When reinforcements stormed in, the raiders faltered and retreated, their skiff peeling away into the dark. The academy sailed. Jason limped from the hangar floor, leaning on Eric's but still smiling, still bright. Instructors swept past, scanning the wounded, yet more than one glanced at Jason and shook their heads in disbelief. The dean herself appeared, crest feathers flared high. She looked to the squad, then to Jason, and declared, "The collision did not shatter bones. Instead it forged bonds." Jason blinked, baffled, then laughed, 'cause it sounded like something from a cheap motivational banner. But deep down he knew it was true. The raid scarred the academy, but also stitched cadets closer than ever. Jason found himself a quiet icon, not for landing the most hits or issuing the best commands, but because once again he had walked away from what should have crushed him. The bruises striping his ribs and arms told another story. Yet to his classmates, his laughter and steady stride proved the human body had its own treaty with disaster. He became a tale repeated in the mess hall. Cadets exaggerated wildly. One claimed Jason punched a crate into orbit. Another swore he swallowed a plasma bolt and burped smoke. Jason corrected none of them. He found it funnier to let the myths climb like vines on an old wall. Training grew harsher after the academy could no longer pretend. Danger was distant. Jason adapted with the rest, and soon he was no longer the oddball at the bottom of the roster. He wasn't the fastest, wasn't the sharpest shot, but everyone wanted him nearby. His presence reminded them that falling wasn't the end. Sometimes it was the start of a comeback. He realized this. More than tactics, more than gear, was what he gave proof that survival was a matter of spirit as much as armor. Yet not all instructors approved. Vorin summoned him one evening, horns catching the dim light. "You inspire them," the veteran But inspiration is not invincibility. What happens when you finally cannot rise? Jason thought long. Then replied, I hope by then the others already know how to rise. Without me. It wasn't bravado. It was truth. Voron's second set of eyes narrowed, but his first pair softened. Perhaps that is the point. The next trial came sooner than expected. Fracture split the orbital shell, one wing, losing pressure. Bulkheads sealed late, trapping young cadets in the collapsing section. Instructors scrambled, but the fastest path was blocked by wreckage. Jason's quad was nearest. Without orders, he dashed. Ahead, helmet sealed, lungs burning. The corridor groaned as air hissed away. He wedged under a twisted beam, bracing it with shoulders and raw will. It weighed more than anything he should have held, but adrenaline and stubbornness pinned it long enough for his squad to crawl through and reach the trapped cadets. The alarms screamed, his display flashed red, his friends begged him to retreat. He stayed braced until the last cadet scrambled free. Only then did he dive through, slamming the hatch as the corridor behind tore into the void. Silence followed, broken only by his ragged breath. His arms blazed, his back screamed, and when his squad crowded him with relief, Jason sagged to the floor. That one, he rasped, counts as a collision. They laughed through tears, shaking him by the shoulders. He was alive. He was always alive. The Academy awarded him a commendation, not for strength, not for tactics, but for being the one who stayed up when standing seemed impossible. His friends stitched a patch onto his uniform, a stick figure struck by a boulder, still walking. Jason wore it proudly, though it embarrassed. Weeks later, the dean addressed the cadets. Humans do not triumph by avoiding collisions, she said. They triumph by enduring them, by laughing at them, by showing us that broken moments are pauses, not endings. Graduation arrived. Cadets of every shape and size lined the hall, banners streaming. When Jason's name was called, the applause was louder, fuller, almost relieved. He marched forward, insignia gleaming, trying not to grin. Irex leaned close and hissed, Don't trip, human. If you fall, the whole Academy will faint. Jason chuckled, then deliberately stumbled just enough to make the front row gasp. He caught himself and waved. Laughter thundered through the hall. He didn't know where the future would take him, what missions, what battles, what hidden corners of the galaxy. But he knew one thing: when the next collision came, he would rise. And deep inside, every cadet who watched him would carry that lesson.